Good evening, Bills Mafia. Happy Monday. It's a beautiful day today. Welcome to Buffalo Late Night. I am your host, Thomas DeLoss. You can find our show on all social media and streaming platforms, including Spotify and YouTube. And if you're currently watching on Twitch, which I'm sure some of you are, feel free to hop on over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, and come join the conversation. We should have some good ones tonight. Now, joining us this evening, two fantastic guys, two really high-quality listens. First, from Buffalo Rumblings, the co-host of the Hump Day Hotline with Joe Miller and the host of the Code of Conduct podcast, my man Jay Spence the King. And secondly, we were also joined tonight from WGR 550, the producer of the morning show with Howard Simon and Jerry White, the host of the Buffalo Bills pregame show, and the co-host of the Extra Point show with Sal Capaccio, Mr. Sneaky Joe DiBiase. Gentlemen, how we doing?
Boys, how are we tonight?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the invite. It's fun to be hanging out with Joe tonight, man. What's up?
Yeah, I don't think we've ever spoken. Like we've had a lot of Twitter interactions, so I feel like I know you, but I don't think we've talked before.
Yeah, this is the first. So I'm excited to do this. Thomas, I've been speaking highly of you, so I can't wait to kind of have a conversation with you as well, man. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, let's break it all down. Now, first, I want to bring out our guy. Last week, we introduced him. We now have a injury specialist, a regular weekly contributor, and that's from Banged Up Bills, Dr. Kyle Trimble. Kyle, good evening. How we doing?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on again.
Beautiful. I want to touch on real quick, just your real quick synopsis from Saturday's preseason game. Any real quick snippets about injuries that you got for us?
Everything was pretty clean overall. Kyer Elam had gone in for a concussion check late in the second quarter. Thankfully, he came out clear and he was eligible to return to the game, but he didn't because it was preseason. So that was good to see that he had to go through the concussion protocol. Other than that, Raheem Blackshear suffered a left ankle injury late in the fourth quarter on his, I'm not sure if it was the first or second touchdown run of the day for him, but it was on a touchdown run, and he got his ankle tweaked pretty good. He came out and then looks like he got hit back up and then came right back in because he's fighting for every snap he can get in these preseason games. So it looked like just a general sprain. They didn't say anything about it in the press conference the next day, or excuse me, on Monday. So it doesn't appear to be anything crazy, but I wouldn't be surprised if he is maybe limited for practice or two. But once again, he's fighting for every snap he can get. Other injuries to note are Tommy Doyle. He does have a right foot injury. They have him on a scooter at practice with a walking boot on. I couldn't find anything specific as to what he did in the game. There was one play at the very end of the half where it looked like he hopped for a second, but it might have just been just that trying to get back into play and, getting your speed up quickly. And so like hopping was a way to get there. So there wasn't anything definitive on film that said that he got stepped on or got sprained or anything, but we might get more information as we go on. And then everything else is pretty clean. And the only other thing we got was that Marquez Stevenson did have surgery on his right foot, which he had suffered during training camp practice. During the red and blue scrimmage, he had been seen on a scooter with a walking boot as well. And that was all we knew. And then he had surgery around that time last week, which we found out on Monday, or excuse me, on Sunday, I should say. So we don't know what exactly he did. I suspect a fracture, but that's just only guessing off of the possibilities it could be because they didn't rule him out completely for week one. So we definitely have some information we're still waiting more clarification on, but otherwise it was a pretty good preseason game injury wise, and they're looking pretty good for Denver coming this Saturday.
Apologize, my mic just has been a little haywire. Thank you for being patient there with me. I'll tell you, we avoided a lot of injury. I'll tell you, the couple preseason games that came across this weekend were pretty tumultuous. Obviously, we heard about Zach Wilson. So we kind of came out unscathed in that. There was a little bit of rumor going around. I didn't seem like, I know I heard Joe and Sale speak on it, that there's speculation that Trey could be closer to day-to-day Trey White than more, week to week or at that point. Is there any clarity or anything that you've heard on your end?
No, I did do an arc for Buffalo Rumblings. I think last week, 2 weeks ago, about when I thought he would come back. As of right now, I still believe he's going to come back on week 2 because they'll activate him. Here's how I look at it. They could activate him on August 25th, which will be 9 months exactly to the day he has surgery. That'll give him 3 weeks to ramp up, and I don't believe he'll play in week 1 against the Rams because he needs that time to ramp up and get into the game shape with regards to getting in the defense. And then that longer duration in between week 1 and week 2, with it being that Thursday night game and then that Monday night game, allows them enough time to kind of get him ramped up and then slowly work in the snaps there. I don't anticipate him getting up to 100% of snaps until maybe midseason. And take over the lion's share, but that's my theory on it. We did see Marcus Pierce of the Ravens get activated off the PUP today, and his injury was almost 3 months prior to what Trey White was, but each ACL injury is different, and you can't say because Marcus Pierce was just activated that puts Trey White to be activated later on in the season. So I know he's been pushing to get back. I think that he's going to want to get back and at least try to work his way in, but we haven't gotten anything definitive. But I know Jeremy Fowler of ESPN said he's going to be back sooner than later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I really quickly just ask, a moment ago you touched on Stevenson, and I know you said you don't know exactly like the injury that happened or how it happened, but do you have a timetable? And if you said this, I'm sorry, I just didn't hear you. But is there a timetable on his return?
Not right now. They haven't ruled him out for week 1, which was interesting. I took that as it's not a Liz Frank, because if it was a Liz Frank injury, which is like a mid-foot sprain, and sometimes there's a fracture involved or a real severe sprain depending on the structures involved, those are usually season ending, and they would say that right off the bat. There's a possibility it could be a Jones fracture, but once again, they would rule out week one, and then be a little more, I think, more forthright, maybe not telling that. So we don't have a definitive timeline right now. I wish I could give you one, but they're cagey at this time of the year, and most teams are. So until we get more information, or if somebody had to play, because it did happen at training camp, and no one has video on that. So if somebody does a video out of training camp, hey, send it our way, and we'll see if we can try to figure it out.
Okay.
Beautiful. Do I sound okay? Am I clear?
You sound better.
Yeah, you're good.
Beautiful. I appreciate you guys. Kyle, thank you as always, and we will see you next week, my friend.
All right, thank you very much. Have a good night, guys.
Take care, brother. Now, obviously, this week, guys, we have that big game on Saturday. No starters really played besides Kair. But what I wanted to find out from you guys, I'm going to go right to Joe first, just because we have limited time with you. What are your initial thoughts after Saturday's win?
On Elam, I thought he looked the part. I mean, he didn't have, no test at all. It was the Colts starters. It wasn't like he was in there against, Ellinger, the Colts backup for most of the game, or Nick Foles. Like, he was in there against Indy's ones. And Matt Ryan was slinging it. Like, he was trying to get it out there to Alec Pierce, who Elam was matched up one-on-one a lot with. And if you're not familiar with the player, second-round pick out of Cincinnati. And we're talking speed with Alec Pierce, which maybe that fits well for Elam's profile, given that he's lengthy and fast and athletic, and you would think he'll have a better time with those better athletes. But he did. Like, the one play that we're all thinking of that jumped off the page was third down, and it's at the sticks, and it's a timing play. He's got to be there on time, because if he's late, then it's going to be a reception, and if he's early, it's going to be a penalty. So that's a pressure situation for a corner, and he nails it. And he doesn't wrap the hip with his left hand, which could also draw a penalty. So his big play of the game, I mean, was just technically sound. Timing-wise was perfect. And again, like, showing off the athleticism a little bit to be able to stay stride with a really fast receiver in Alec Pierce. So I loved what I saw. I didn't see any problems. And I don't remember seeing anything that made me think, oh, he's not ready yet for week one. I would expect at this point he'll be in the starting lineup week one, and I wouldn't be worried about that being the case.
Spence?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, my expectation coming into this game over the weekend was, well, we might see him struggle a little bit because we heard that he struggled against Diggs. But then obviously you have to understand that Diggs is, he's
Diggs.
He's Diggs. So even the receivers over in Indianapolis, they're not, they're not Diggs. So maybe it is a good thing in that he's going against Diggs every day in practice and every week in practice. And so I'm looking forward to seeing him week one. I agree with Joe. He's going to be starting. It's still a little concerning to me, even though last year we had Dane Jackson starting opposite of Levi Wallace when Trey was out. I just think at that point, it's difficult for me to still be comfortable going into week one without Trey being healthy, because it's asking a lot of the rookie. Even though we think he looks good and he's great, I want him to play as good as possible. But to me, it's asking a lot for the two cornerbacks, and one being Dane not being the guy that he's not a top draft pick. He's not that matters, but he's not that. And then you're having an expectation for those guys to come out. And right now, I guess you're hoping that their ceiling is like the floor from last season for the cornerback position until Trey gets back. But I don't know. It's a lot to ask. To ask. I'm just really, really hopeful that Dane. I'm more worried about Dane. I guess that's what I'm saying. I did a lot of rambling there to say I'm more worried about Dane Jackson than I am Elam.
I will say this too, like that week one matchup, and I know we're a little ways away from like matchups and previewing like the actual like corner versus receiver battles that you'll see. Probably we'll get into that, as a media the week of the game. But I don't think Kaiir Elam's going to be matched up with Cooper Kupp in that game. I was doing some digging on this earlier today, actually. Kupp, in the 1,200 snaps he played last season, only 131 were on the outside. Like, he primarily works out of the slot, and he's their superstar receiver. So that might actually work out for the Bills if they think, hey, Trey needs a couple of extra weeks. The best corner they're going to have on the field that you trust the most, honestly, is Taron Johnson. And Taron Johnson will be the guy probably handling Cooper Kupp. Now, that's not to say Elam will not be faced with any challenge, because Allen Robinson, if he bounces back after a horrible season in Chicago, like he can be a premier receiver in the league. But I will say it's not like, he'll be thrown to the wolves week 1 because, again, Kupp probably will be matched up with Taron Johnson.
But then, so I agree with you there. So with him not being on Cup, I think that's a good thing. That's something that you want to hear. But then the scary part that comes into it is when you're going against the Rams, you still have an Allen Robinson, so it's so whereas he's coming from Chicago being the number 1 receiver there, you have 2 number 1 receivers over there that we're going up against, with LA. So I still think week 1 is going to be a test that we really haven't seen last season. After Trey went down, I think, I've been saying this. We had the Bucks, who had a pretty good passing attack, and then the playoff game against the Chiefs, a pretty good passing attack. Other than that, last season, after Trey went down, we faced a lot of offenses that either their starting quarterback wasn't the guy, or receiver was injured, or we had weather, a la Patriots game where the windstorm, and you got these teams that are run first teams. And this year, coming out the gate, we got probably 7 of our first 9 games. You're going to be this defense is going to be tested. 100%.
The Tampa game, I'm glad you mentioned it, just real quick on that, because they weren't tested very often. That was the one game I thought Dane Jackson struggled in the most. For the most part, like he held serve, like he was okay once Trey went down. That Tampa game, though, he got beat a couple of times. And often when he was getting beat in that game, he was matched up with Mike Evans. And if I think about Allen Robinson and I think about Mike Evans, Evans probably has more vertical speed, but what do they have in common? They're big physical receivers. So maybe they'll try to get Elam on him. I'm not sure what Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier will want to do, whether they'll do this with Trey, where they'll follow one receiver around and they'll shadow him. I don't think they do that with Dane Jackson. I'm not sure, though. If they like Elam's size against Robinson, maybe they take the risk and put the rookie in there. It won't be perfect, whatever they do, but I'll be very curious to see how they go about matchups in that week 1 game with their corners.
I'll tell you, though, even after all that, I mean, even in the Super Bowl, you saw a drop off, though. I mean, Van Jefferson, I'm not a huge fan. I don't think he's anything to write home about. And we really don't know Allen Robinson at this point. I mean, it's been kind of suspect. He's never had a top tier quarterback. So really, I mean, it's Cooper Kupp. And if you could put a good defense against them, I mean, you saw what happened multiple games for the Rams. It's suspect, just like the Bills. I feel like if you can get Josh Allen rolling, which is truly going to be the question, I think, because Josh Allen coming out a lot of times is a little rusty, a little shaky. If he can come out and start playing the way he did in the playoffs, or at least the last 6 games in the playoffs, then you're talking this could be a more combative, game where they actually are going to be toe for toe, or potentially, which a lot of people think, they might just run over the Rams.
Yeah.
I would love that as a Bills fan, being an honest fan and a realistic person. I want to say, I understand what people might think about Allen Robinson. Let me just tell you, that guy is that guy. Like, he's the dude, and he's going out there and he's going to be a number 2, but he absolutely earned every bit of those number 1 reps that he had in Chicago. So it just so happens that Cooper Kupp is a far better receiver, but Allen Robinson could start on pretty much, he could probably be a number 1 receiver on half the teams in the league right now when you look at other rosters. So, I'm hoping, man. We got a good defense. I do think potentially as the year goes on, this defense can be better than last year's defense. But if I'm being honest, man, I'm nervous about week 1.
Yeah, and I'll say this. We still don't know about Trey. I mean, for all we know, Trey could absolutely be ready week 1. Obviously, we all want him 100%. Who knows? I mean, I've had both my ACLs repaired, and I'm already, running and walking, and my surgery was just around Trey's time. And I am not Tre'Davious White. I do not have the athleticism. I don't have the daily rehab and all the trainers that he has accessible to him. But that being said, I think it'll be one of those matchups that you get past them and you beat them, and let's say we beat them handily, I think you're talking about the Bills team differently than we're talking about them even now. Because, yes, we are favored, but I feel like there's still some question marks as to, can the Bills truly do what people are saying they're going to do? And if you roll the Super Bowl champions, then you're talking about a very different game.
It'll be confirmation for. I mean, go find a power ranking right now that doesn't have them number one anywhere.
Right.
Like they have all the expectations in the world, and they'll be expected to win that week one game. If they lose it, it's not going to be the sky is falling. It'll be you lost on the road to the defending Super Bowl champions. There's no insult if they lose that game. But man, if they win it, like it'll just be everyone saying, "See, best team in football."
Yep, absolutely. Now, one other thing I've got is, well, one of the many other things. My gut reaction to the game, just like we said, was that the cornerback 2 battle was a little bit worrisome. I know we all were kind of like feeling whether or not that we had somebody in the wings. The thought was Kyer would come right in and, really step it up. And through training camp, there was a little worry just from him being tentative. I know myself, Joe Marino, we're sitting with Joe Miller, and we kind of felt like he was in his own head. It just seemed like he was, I don't know, a little tight on the field. But it seems as though after that game, those worries seem to have dissipated. And the one thing I feel like is we have an embarrassment of riches at this point. The name nobody talks about, Cam Lewis, a UB boy, has been a stud for most of training camp. He's a bit of a thumper. I mean, you've got Dane Jackson, you've got Kyer Elam, you've got a 6th rounder in Christian Benford, who's a dog. You've got a lot of guys. And I think, with Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce, you had the starting offense really into the second quarter, and they proved as a second string defense that they could hold their own. Is there, aside from those battles, was there somebody else on Saturday that stuck out to the two of you guys?
In general, or just at the cornerback position?
In general, across the team, whatever caught your eye.
It was hard to not notice Khalil Shakir in that game. I mean, I took the easy one. So sorry, Spence, if I took the easy one from you. But I mean, I thought he was great. I'm not sure if I'm doing he reminds me of Robert Woods thing just because he wears the same number. Thing. Like it might just be he wears number 10, and that's all I'm doing. But just kind of that composed route running, sure-handed. He just seems to be open. He's not blowing you away with his speed, but you're like, all right, he can move. Like he's smooth. He's almost silky when he's running. I was super impressed with Khalil Shakir. And listen, the one play we saw from Jamison Crowder, I mean, he played more than one snap, I know, but it didn't go well. So I'm wondering about, hey, if Shakir keeps this up, can he make them think about what they do at the slot? I don't think he'd ever get to a point where he's starting to begin the season over Isaiah McKenzie and Jamison Crowder, but can he earn a role in the offense? More and more, I'm starting to think yes, given what all we heard about him as a prospect out of the draft, which was, hey, don't be surprised if he earns a role because he's a great prospect, should not have gone in the 5th round. Then training camp, it's like, all right, he's showing up. He's playing well at training camp. And then preseason game number 1, there he is again. So at every step of the way since he was drafted, we've been told or we've seen this guy might earn a role. I don't know what that role might be. It could only be 25, 30 targets at the end of the day. But I think Shakir showed out in that first game. And I think he kind of proved a lot of the hype that he's been getting since the draft was worth it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. I'll go somebody who like you noticed, but you didn't quite notice because they weren't on the field, but Ken Dorsey. I'm going to say that. So the offense obviously is preseason. So we saw a very vanilla offense roll out. I'm not saying that he game planned and all this other stuff, but what I will say is for the situations that we saw in game, I feel like he made proper adjustments throughout the game. And when you look at certain drives that the Buffalo Bills had, they were consistent. They were methodical. They even without Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs in there, without Isaiah McKenzie or, without your top guys in every spot, the offense looked like, okay, at any point, these guys can score. Like you just kind of felt like that. Even when we were struggling early on, really like to score points and we were turning the ball over, you still kind of felt like, man, we could score. Like it just had that feeling. So like I said, when you throw Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs into that offense, I think Ken Dorsey is going to be just fine. I know in Buffalo, I feel like we look at it that way, but national media, a lot of times they like to question those type of things. I think Ken Dorsey was handpicked. I think he was built. I think he was molded. Any word that you want to come up with for this role, I think he was made for it. So right. I think we're going to see an offense that actually might even be better than the two that we saw these previous 2 years.
Right. Yeah, you could definitely feel that there was a sense of, I want to say, calm in the offense. There wasn't. I don't know. You would think going from an offensive coordinator you had for 4 years going into the new offensive coordinator, that first game it would be a little choppy. Things would be a little rough. I mean, Dallas, they had how many penalties in their preseason game? I mean, things were sideways.
17, I think, was the number on that. Yeah,
right. And you would have thought that Ken Dorsey was the offensive coordinator for years and years and years. The one guy that caught my eye, well, two, but the one guy is Tim Settle. I'll tell you, he's given me flashes of that 99 when Darius had his first year, when the guy was a shop wrecker and just terrorizes defenses through the middle. And I'll tell you, the one thing that I noticed about with training camp with Tim Settle, you always need that guy that brings that excitement, that brings that spark, that kind of gets the team going when things are rough, it's cold, it's bitter out, it's raining, it's not fun, you might be losing, whatever it is. And Tim Settle's that guy. But what also Tim Settle is, he's that motor that doesn't stop. And, man, when you watched him and he was ragdolling the offensive line for the Colts, I mean, guys like Quentin Nelson, like all-pro Quentin Nelson, and he was having his way. You're talking a guy that is literally chomping at the bit because he was sitting behind a very good, Commander's offensive or defensive line, and he just couldn't get through. There just wasn't enough snaps. And now the guy is getting that opportunity. I think the world's in front of this dude, and he knows it, and he's just jacked up. The other one that I thought was incredible was Balin Spector. For a 7th-round guy, and I'll tell you, I looked this up before, Clemson is absolutely not known for its linebackers. If you look, it's almost embarrassing, the linebackers that they put out. Wide receivers, top-notch. Linebackers, nothing to write home about. But, man, I'll tell you, the big thing about Balin Spector was his ability to diagnose plays was really – that was a big thing for him. And, man, did he know and look the part. What he was able to do in just playing against a very good Colts offensive line was super impressive. And the one big play that I saw was him literally taking Quentin Nelson and throwing him to the ground. Ridiculous. What this defense can become, I don't think it can be said enough, because you're talking a number 1 defense that got better is where does it go?
Yeah. And that was the part that also impressed me Saturday, is that obviously a good number of the starters didn't play. So when you look at the team that was out there and you look at the defense that was there, they were going up. We had our number 2s and 3s mixed in there going up against their number 1s. And I feel like, again, that's why I said you throw Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs on the offense there, I think that game looks a whole lot different in that first half. But defensively, our second and third unit mixed together did what we had to do to stop the Indianapolis, or to contain the Indianapolis. Now, they didn't have Jonathan Taylor, I get it, but our second and third unit looked pretty darn good against the starting unit. So, the McDermott, Bean, can we extend their extensions already? Like, what are we doing? What are we doing?
By the way, one other guy I will mention that stood out to me, it was only one play, but Quentin Morris, Bills tight end, I'm thinking about him a little bit because, and it's maybe even less about him and the tight end room as a whole, because I think by the shot they took on OJ Howard in free agency, they clearly want that big athletic tight end, emphasis on that can kind of work up the seams. Like the biggest play the Bills made on offense on Saturday, the 43-yarder Barkley to Quentin Morris, that's the exact play I think everyone was envisioning in their minds and daydreaming about when they signed OJ Howard, was straight up the seams, beat the linebacker or safety at 43 for the Colts. I don't know if he's a linebacker or safety, but Quentin Morris just beat him up the seam, got open because he's got that athleticism, he's got that speed, and he hauls in the catch. And like, there's speed there. Morris ran a 4.58 40 at a Bowling Green.
Wow.
For comparison, like that's not like a fast receiver, but for comparison, Isaiah Hodgins ran a 4.61. So like receiver speed, but at the tight end position. And the Bills liked him enough to keep him on the practice squad all last season. Actually, not even all, because they elevated him towards the latter point of the season. So they liked him enough to keep him around. And I'll be honest, OJ Howard has not looked like the same player to me. I mean, it's nothing against him. He tore his Achilles 16 months ago, and that is the hardest injury to come back from in football. And last year, he certainly wasn't back from it because he was hardly a part of Tampa Bay's offense, and he was their third string tight end behind Brate and, of course, Gronkowski. So I think the Bills took a flyer on OJ Howard of, hey, you didn't look the same last year, but let's see what you look like 8 months later. Maybe you look a little bit healthier. To my eyes, he doesn't look much healthier. So I'm wondering about his security on the roster, and I'm wondering if Quentin Morris might be able to battle his way on, given that the Bills also, if they want to throw a couple $1 million at an Odell Beckham, they do save $2.5 million by cutting OJ Howard. So I wonder if there's a roster battle going on at tight end that that is kind of flying under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, I'm liking Joe's whole thing. I like the whole thing he just said there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
tight end.
I'll be honest with you. It's not surprising. The Bills have, and they've proven it, one of the best medical staffs. One year with limited injuries, could be a fluke. 2 years, it's a chance. You're talking, it has been 5 years concurrently of very, very good injury prevention, prehab, just an overall lockstep that they've been able to produce, where you come in here, you come out a better version of who you are. And I very, very surprised, or wouldn't be surprised, excuse me, if an agent told their client, like, listen, you want to be the best version, go play with Josh Allen, go work with, Coach McDermott, and go get your body right. Because people come out of Buffalo and they're better for it. So yeah, absolutely makes sense with OJ Howard. And it's entirely possible because, quite frankly, even since he came from Alabama, he is not really reached his draft stock. So if he doesn't, it's not, I don't think the Bills missed out. I think it's just one of those things that, unfortunately, they took a shot on, and like you said, it's what, $2.5 million?
It was $2.5 million they saved. They cut him. I forget what his salary is. I think it's a little bit more than that. But like they put that in there. Like when they signed him, they had it put in there that, hey, if we want to release you before the season, then we can get out of it almost scotch free. So I would still predict he's more likely than not to make the roster. Like if you pinned me down and like, is he on the team or not? I think I'd still be on the yes side right now, but I don't think it's a lock. I just wouldn't think it's a lock at this point.
What are your thoughts on Odell Beckham?
I love it. I mean, I've loved Beckham though for his entire career. So I've got some inherent bias there that he's been one of my favorite receivers in the league. But I think it fits. I think it fits well enough that, I mean, it fits for his side because he's got to rebuild his value. And part of that is proving you're healthy. And Spencer's made the point, or you guys both just made the point. If you want to get your body right, like, come here, because nobody gets injured here. And like, knock on wood, that remains the case. But I think that makes sense for the offense, playing with the quarterback. It makes sense for chasing a Super Bowl. And from the Bills standpoint, I just wouldn't want to be afraid of adding more talent. Tampa Bay already had Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and they signed Russell Gage in the offseason. Were they afraid of Julio Jones? They're like, no, we're more talent. Sure, take it. And, oh, by the way, a week later, Godwin's still dealing with the ACL, Gage has a foot injury, and Evans has a hamstring injury. It's like, well, suddenly Julio Jones went from a bonus to, we might actually need this guy at the start of the year. And while I think if the Bills signed Beckham, it would be a bonus of, hey, number 3 receiver, doesn't have to play all the time, but it's a nice bonus. One injury away from needing him, especially on the outside. One injury to Diggs or Davis. Who goes in right now? Is it Kumaro? Is it Hodgins? Is it Shakir playing on the outside? Like, you're probably at an unknown if that happens. Whereas Beckham, you could play him in the slot, split time with McKenzie, and be your immediate backup if something happens to Diggs or Davis on the outside. I think as long as he doesn't want like $10 million, I think it's a perfect idea.
Right, but I mean, the salary cap's not even real. So I mean, if he wants it, who cares? Jay,
Right.
I know you love you some Odell Beckham.
Yeah, I'm a huge Odell Beckham fan. Like, and not just, not just because of the spectacular catches and all that stuff. I think the reality of who Odell Beckham Jr. is, I think it's completely opposite from what most people have an idea of.
Yeah.
He's an awesome teammate. Realistically, most coaches that he's played for, with the exception of maybe one, and we know who that is. People love him. He's not a problem player. He's not now. Is he loud? Is he is he somebody who attracts a lot of attention for whatever reason? He's wearing a watch, so people want to talk about it. He colors his hair purple, so people want to talk about it. He takes his teammates on a yacht for a weekend, and people want to talk about it. So he's just one of those guys where he's just polarizing. People are going to talk about him, but when you're talking about his work ethic, you're talking about him as a teammate, you're talking about the culture. I know a lot of times people think, oh, that culture, he doesn't fit no, actually he very much fits the mold of the culture that the Buffalo Bills have down on One Bills Drive. So I would absolutely bring in Odell Beckham Jr. in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even second guess it. The question is, obviously he just tore his ACL in the Super Bowl. So at what point does it even make sense for us? Because will he be healthy? Will he be healthy by the playoffs? Will he be healthy? Sometimes it takes a full year. Sometimes it's 9 months, 10 months. So it might not even make sense for us to sign him. But if he's healthy and he can contribute, I'm with Joe. Give Josh Allen all the talent in the world. We've seen it year after year now where high talent teams take shots on guys where either he can still play or you think you might be able to squeeze a little bit out of him. We saw the Chiefs do the same thing with what's our guy from Cleveland? I'm having a brain fart here.
Josh Gordon.
Josh Gordon. I know he's not the guy he was, but they took a shot on him. They signed
Right.
Shady for the Super Bowl year that they had because they took a shot on him. These guys go to the teams where the good coaches are, the good quarterbacks, the high-powered offenses, and all that stuff. Bring OBJ, man. You put him opposite Diggs. Let's go.
The locker room thing. I'll add this in before because I got to run here in a second. But I always want to brush off the locker room stuff if anyone brings it up. I hate it. It's not even based in reality. I mean, even if it was, like, let's say I don't want to use Beckham because I hate even just connecting his name to any sort of locker room problem. Like, we've never ever seen any hardcore concrete evidence that actually has happened. Like, it was his dad, right, that got into it with Mayfield. It wasn't even him. So I think if even someone was a locker room problem, or you thought, oh, it's a little questionable, do you have a strong locker room or not? Because if you've got this strong culture, you'd like to think you're mature enough and you're strong enough to take on a big personality like that and not crumble because of it, not have it nuke your locker room. They should be strong enough to where that wouldn't happen. And two, of course, that's not happening with Beckham. Nowhere is there a teammate that ever is out there like, oh yeah, he was trouble. Nowhere. Even Mayfield has not like said that in public. And look what happened when Cleveland was telling him not to come to work. I think he's very well respected by his peers. In fact, he's like iconic among his peers in the league. When he is getting told to stay home by Cleveland, what are Justin Jefferson and Chris Godwin and all the young star receivers around the league doing? They're showing up to their games in free Odell shirts. So, like, I don't know. I don't know that Gabe Davis loves Odell Beckham or is a fan, but what was he, 15, 16 years old when he was breaking into the league? It's probably a pretty good chance that the Bills wide receiver room would just be in awe when Beckham came in, not the other way, which would be like, uh-oh, here comes trouble.
Yeah. Right. And not to mention, Von Miller is, I mean, if you see him at training camp, the guy signs for a long time. I mean, it just shows that he understands. And Von Miller and who he is not going to align himself at this point in his career with somebody that's going to drag his image down, because Von is all image based. The guy cares about how he's perceived, how he looks. I mean, everything to a T. And he said himself, just like, you said, Spence, he stands behind OBJ. They wouldn't be going to this length to do this. He came here to win a Super Bowl. He's not going to bring a toxic person in. And on top of that, the first person that's going to sniff that out is Josh Allen. I mean, Josh Allen is the alpha male of alpha males. He ain't going to deal with that bullshit. Yeah. And, you have OBJ coming in there. Those two are going to jive. I guarantee you, OBJ and Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis, you're going to have 3 brothers right there.
I want to see the handshakes. That's what I'm ready for. Give me the handshakes and the touchdown celebrations, man. Let's do it.
Right. And the other thing about this, and I'll let you go, Joe, in a second. 10 years down the line, just think, they win the Super Bowl this year. No one's going to give a shit that we signed Odell Beckham or Von Miller or anything. Nobody's going to care, because you know what? Well, we're going to sit there and say, we got that chip. We got that championship. Yeah. That's what's most important. You bring that championship to Buffalo, nothing else matters. Nothing. It doesn't matter. Because when you go back into the annex of games in the history, you're going to have games throughout the season that didn't matter, or things happened, or plays happened, or players did stupid stuff. But it doesn't matter. At the grand scheme of things, if Odell Beckham comes here and we win a Super Bowl, Odell Beckham's going to go down as a legend in Buffalo.
Heck yeah. Which he should be anyway, but heck yeah.
I think I'm a Buffalo legend at it. Joey, I appreciate you, my man.
No problem. Sorry, guys. 4:30 wake up calls. I gotta hit the hay.
Yeah, Howard's grumpy in the morning. I get it.
Oh, I gotta be ready for him when he gets. All right, later, boys.
Joe, have a good one, night, brother. Speaking of being grumpy and going to things, being grumpy is going to the dentist. Little kids don't like it, and I'll tell you, a Dentist for Kids offers individual dental treatment for kids of all ages by providing a relaxed, fun, and encouraging environment. Dr. Zach, my cousin, my bruz, the goal is to help all your children and build their confidence in their smile and with their overall dental health. A Dentist for Kids is currently accepting new patients, and they participate with most major insurances. If you visit Dr. Zach, mention Buffalo Late Night for for $25 off your choice of a custom whitening kit or an electric toothbrush. Call today and set up an appointment with his team and Zach. I'll tell you, they are the best. They really are. 585-538-7230. Again, that's 585-538-7230. Just go see him. If you got kids that are scared of going to the dentist, if you have kids that absolutely hate it like I did when I was a kid, go see him. He is the best in the business for a reason. Just tell him we sent you. Jay, gotta ask you. With all the injuries going on right now in the preseason, how much is he leaning or is he hamstrung to the idea or having caution with playing any of the starters at this point?
I'm sure they're exercising caution, but I think we learned from, so obviously the year that we had no preseason at all. And then I think last year, we barely played Josh. If I'm not mistaken, I think he played maybe two series, maybe.
You're right.
And I think he came out a little bit rusty, and he appears to kind of start off slow when that happens, when he just doesn't have any reps. So I do think I wouldn't be surprised if we see Josh Allen actually play. Now, whether that be, that third game or whether that's this game coming up here where we actually do get to see him play maybe a quarter. I wouldn't expect to see a full half, but I do expect to see him at least get some type of rhythm going. Let him and Diggs go out there, pitch and catch a little bit. If there's any type of hit that appears to be too hard, he's coming out. But I do anticipate to see him a little bit, just so that way they can get something going.
Right. Yeah. I get a little nervous. The only thing, and I've said this in, I was talking with Uber Hansen about this. I think the main priority is you can get Ken Dorsey in his ears, just so he can hear what that game, the game like, rhythm is. Right. Just so he understands, because that's the main focus for him, is if he can go out there and everything is copacetic going into week 1, no worries. Hands off. We don't have to worry about anything. Going into next week's preseason game, obviously there's still some battles that are going on. Is there a player that you are going to be honing in on, somebody that maybe that you're going to spend more time kind of dissecting their game?
Actually, right now, I'm eyeing the entire offensive line, and obviously the injuries that were going on, and we had the car accident for Roger Saffold, and then we had so we had so many different things going on. What I'm looking for is as they come back and as we get healthier, if that communication is there, because what you notice when new units come together, you can have the best offensive linemen ever and put them together, but if they don't know how to play with each other, it doesn't matter how healthy they are. It doesn't matter how good they are individually. They have to gel as a unit, and you see a lot of missed assignments. You see a lot of missed blocks. So I'm looking at that right now as far as injuries and health. I want to see how the line comes back together and gel, because it's important. I think last year, Josh was one of the most pressured quarterbacks, he had a high success rate when he was
Right.
pressured. So I don't know if teams are going to still look to do the same thing, but you absolutely have to pressure him like that. You have to. So I think if we can protect him just a little bit better to where he doesn't have to scramble, I would like to see Josh take a little bit less punishment this year. So I'll be looking at the offensive line, really. Like that's important.
Right. And I mean, granted, we have Quessenberry. So Quessenberry should be Rick Bates' replacement as kind of that all-purpose jack-in-the-box type of guy. But you're right. Beyond that, there are a lot of question marks as to whether or not there's sustainability because you saw prior to Rick Bates coming in, the offensive line was a mess. You had Rick Bates in the Jaguars game, different story, a different team. The one thing I think I'm at least a little bit concerned with, which you saw Khalil Shakir do a little bit of that punt return job. I'm really concerned as to what they're going to do with the punt return and really the kick return job, because we haven't gotten much clarity in that, at least thus far. And I'm not entirely sure if they even know what they want to do, because it seemed Duke Johnson was really good at the kick returns, but they started off with James Cook. I'm just not exactly sure, what the plan of attack is at this point.
Well, so the way I see it right now, I think obviously the running back battle comes first, because the way I feel like it's going to work out, whoever that final running back, whoever gets that roster position will probably be the returner. So if Duke, I feel like it's going to be James. I think it's going to be James Cook. I think Duke is going to be the odd man out. Unfortunately, I know we signed him to be that back out the backfield and get us some yards after the catch and do some fun things with. I get it, but James Cook is coming in as a rookie. He's more dynamic. He has a lot of things about his game that he's still going to be able to develop and be very, very good with. So the way I see it, I think James Cook is going to be our guy for the punt and kick return position. I think we're going to improve there dramatically from last season. And to be honest, I don't think I struggle saying this because, being a Bills fan my whole life, we had to be humble for so long, and I'm still trying to be humble. So I'm not saying this as a brag, but it's like, I really don't think we have holes. Like, as soon as we get healthy, like when Trey comes back, and as soon as like the offensive line is healthy, we don't have a hole on the roster.
Say it with your chest. It's okay.
It's
a damn good Bills team.
It's just scary. It's like, it's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable. We have, depending on who you talk to, the top 3 quarterback in the league, and
he ain't 3.
He ain't, but you got some people that's going whatever, right? You got one of the top wide receiver units in the league, top defense in the league from last year. Special teams really last year to me was the weakness.
Right.
You correct that, man.
Now you have a punter who can kick at 82 yards.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's a lot to be excited about. Like I said, with Tim Settle, they added on the defense. There's tons of firepower there. Then they had guys like Khalil Shakir. You're going to see guys like Isaiah McKenzie finally get his long-awaited shot to actually prove that he is what he says he is, the face of the franchise. You're going to have Gabriel Davis stepping up in that number 2 role, which I know you've said it yourself. He's going to have a big year. I think he's going to light the world on fire. There's just a lot. There's truly a lot to be excited about. And for Bills fans, we all know it's been a long time that we've sat there and watched pretty uninspiring teams, 6-3 against Cleveland. It's just brutal. We got Brett with a little comment. Cornerbacks without White, O-line, punter are biggest weaknesses.
I would say that I wouldn't say punter. I'd take punter off that list, but absolutely cornerbacks without White and our O-line. If I was to rank them, it would be O-line, because I do think Kyer is good. I do think Dane is pretty good. I don't think he's Trey. The reason why I'm not confident is because I want to go into the season with an all-pro guy with a first-round rookie. That's what I want to go in there with. Right now, we're going into it with a first-round rookie with a guy he's played better than his draft position, but he's not a number 1 or a first-round draft pick. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. But without Trey, I still feel confident because we have Jordan. We still have Micah back there, 2 all-pro safeties. And they masked a lot of the weaknesses last year for us. So I think they're going to do that again until Trey gets healthy. And I think, when it comes down to it, our defense isn't going to be the issue. So that's the honest to God truth. I think what it comes down to for me is just the offensive line. We have to protect Josh Allen. This team is going as far as Josh Allen can go. If Josh Allen gets injured for any reason, I do not want to see Case Keenum coming into this. Now he can start a game or two. I'm not saying I'm very happy that he's on the roster. I do not want to see Case Keenum going into the playoffs as the starter for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He can come in as a patchwork, real quick, fly by the seam of your pants type of option. But he's not. I mean, you saw it. He won a game for the Vikings. He can do things, but he's not Josh Allen. You're right. And if you can keep Josh Allen upright and keep him healthy, that's why they're the favorite, because they've proven that they have all the weapons. And you add guys like Von Miller, you can add that much more pressure. And if the corners can hold off for a little bit longer, you're talking they get home. There's just a lot of different things, a lot of moving parts and pieces in this team. But you're right. If the offensive line stays upright and stays as good as they were at the end of last year, which you're adding Saffold, who's a better guard. You've got hopefully a healthy Spencer Brown. If not, you got Questenberry. There's a lot of different options in there. And on top of that, which we haven't mentioned tonight, is Aaron Cromer. You got Aaron Cromer, who potentially can teach these guys just little nuances to make them better. That's the difference between being good and great, or great and elite, and that's what we're talking about right here for this team.
Yeah, and that's what we need to get to. You want to see them lifting that Lombardi at the end of the year. We've already gotten to the AFC Championship. We've gotten to, we've gone in deep into the playoffs. We got the biggest numbers for TV. We got the best offensive game in playoff history. We got all this stuff that we don't care about.
Right.
Now we want the chip. We want to hold that trophy up. We want to have a damn parade going down Elmwood or Main Street. I don't care which one, whichever one y'all want to have it on. Niagara, Elmwood, Delaware, have at it. But I want to be there. I want to be there. I want to go down. I just want it to be crazy. I want to go down. I want Josh Allen to ride down Allen Street in a drop top in February. That's what I want to see.
I'm game for it. Now I got to ask you, well, actually, let's do the last read, and then I'm going to ask you a question because I'm excited for your answer. I know how you bleed this stuff. Travis Matthews Innovative Fabrics keep you looking and feeling your best, whether you're on the golf course or strolling through town, offering supreme comfort for every aspect of your life with clothing that's quick drying, wrinkle resistant, super soft. You can move seamlessly from work to play. Get 20% off your first order at travismatthew.com. You'll find the link right on Buffalo Late Night's social media pages. Aside from that, real quick plug, Buffalo Late Night now does have its own website, bflolatennight.com. My beautiful wife made the website. It's fantastic. I was stunned. You can get all the information. All of our socials are on there. We're going to have some merch up there my brother's working on right now. A lot of cool stuff. We're really excited about where this is going. But all of our previous content where you've had fantastic guys like Joe Miller and Greg Thompson, Joe and Spence, and all the way back to the first episode where we had Kimmick and Leslie. And there's just been fantastic people on the show so far. But check it all out. You can find all that stuff, whether it's on Spotify for the recordings, on YouTube for the full-on video, so you can see all their beautiful faces. Go check it out. Now, Spence, I asked my brother this, and I've asked every single guest so far. Hopefully I'll make a compilation of this because I really love the answers. But I asked him a few weeks ago, and I wanted to hear from you. If you could tell people who have never experienced what it's like to be a Bills fan in synopsis, what would you tell them?
Okay, so does this answer have to be like, is it rated like PG? Like what is the audience I'm talking to here?
You can talk to whoever you want to talk to.
Okay, so sex is great, right? And I'll leave it there. Like, sex is great, but being a Bills fan is just better. Like, it just is. And it doesn't matter when we're winning or losing. It doesn't matter if you're talking about the 17-year drought. It doesn't matter if you're talking about drafting Josh Allen and now, hoping to get to the promised land. The fact is, being a Bills fan, it's a lifestyle. It's something that you are. It's not, it's not something that you kind of join. It's just something that you are. It's who you are. It's how you wake up. You wake up ready for football. You wake up and you bleed red, white, and blue. Like, that's who it is to be a Bills fan. And I just, I moved to Phoenix, and I got season tickets to the Cardinals. I love Kyler Murray. I love the defense out here. JJ Watt is here. Nothing like the Buffalo Bills. Nothing like the Buffalo Bills. So if you are a free agent fan right now, I'm telling you, come and kick it with us. You need to be in Buffalo.
Love it. No, I'll tell you, the biggest thing in terms of being a Bills fan, at least the way that I always see it, and I know you just kind of echoed it, is being a Bills fan. It's not just a birthright, but it's something you carry with you, you know. And I've lived all over the place. I've lived in Florida. I've lived in Chicago. I've bounced around, and you know, you living in Phoenix, and we have fans all over the place. I mean, Greg Thompson lives in Cleveland. You have people everywhere, all across the nation. And I even went, my wife and I, we go to St. Martin every other year, and they have a guy from Rochester who's a Bills fan, and there's Bills gear. So you ever want to go to the Caribbean, go to St. Martin. There's a Bills bar in the St. Martin. But my point to all this is, doesn't matter where you go, I always carry a Bills shirt, Bills hoodie, Bills hat, Bills something with me, because it's something that you talk about. You give that go Bills when you see another Bills fan. You give that head nod. You give that little wink. But seeing the Bills gear on another person, seeing somebody else see your Bills gear and acknowledge it, there's something special, especially now when you got a team that's fantastic, a team that you're proud of, a team that you can talk on, because for the longest time, you didn't want to talk about the Bills. You didn't want to mention that you were a Bills fan. It was embarrassing to be a Bills fan. You know, it was like when people asked you, you know, if you were in a club and you're like, yeah, I'm in the chess club. Like, you didn't want to say it out loud, but
man, now, you're killing me tonight, man, because I was in the chess club and I lived in Indianapolis when the Bills had EJ, and I had
boy,
you're killing me.
You get that dagger out though. But man, I'll tell you, it's now you could say, you say it proud, you say it with your chest, you say it standing up tall and real excited. It's exciting to be a Bills fan. It's an exciting time. And you can tell it's palpable because you can get people on to come and talk. You got Spence, you got Joe. I've got all these fantastic guests that have been on here, and it's not hard to get people to want to talk about the Bills and explain their passion and their love and understanding, just truly based on that. But aside from all that, I'm going to let these people go. I'm going to finish this up. Spence, you've been fantastic. Plug yourself. Where can people find your really, honestly, truly amazing content?
I appreciate you, man. On Twitter and Instagram at JSpenceTheKing. The Code of Conduct is live every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern time on the Buffalo Rumblings Podcast Network on YouTube. And then on Wednesday night, you can find me with Joe Miller doing the Hump Day Hotline. And then once the season starts again back in September, you can find me on Saturday nights at 9 p.m. with my man Sterling Furrow. We going back to the chop up. So we're going to be back to 3 shows a week when the season starts. Can't wait to see y'all all year, man. I can't wait. Be partying with y'all too. I'll be in Buffalo for the opener, so I can't wait to hang with everybody and see y'all.
There we go. I'll tell you, big thanks again to Spence. Big thanks again to Sneaky Joe DiBiase from WGR, as well as our guy Banged Up Bills, Dr. Kyle Trimble. Like I've said, Kyle will be back every week to give a injury update on all things Bills related. Hopefully not 15 minutes, but more 5 minutes. That means everything's looking beautiful and good to go for the season. Aside from all that, I appreciate everybody checking in tonight. It's been a really nice show. A lot of content with you guys chiming in. And I truly appreciate it. For a kid, this was a niche, something that I just wanted to do when I was young, did it in high school, did it in college, and came back to it 15 years later. I appreciate you guys for all making this guy smile and just trying to add into this little guy's life. This has been Buffalo Elite Night. I am Thomas DeLoss. You can find me at the Thomas DeLoss. Again, you can find all the content for this show on YouTube and other socials. If you want to listen to it, you can find us on all streaming platforms, including Spotify. But again, thank you for watching. We hope you have a great night, and go Bills.
Go Bills.
The Bills make me wanna shout. Kick your heels up and shout. Throw your hands up and shout. Throw your head back and shout. Come on now, the Bills are making it happen now. Stand up now, come on and shout. Yeah.